the thing with critiques is that you have to take it. It's about method. And then when I'm gonna finish up the package, it's gonna be like something that you guys can purchase, and it'll talk about everything that has to do with how to deal with critiques and how to use them to your greatest advantage. The thing is with critiques is that you can't see them as bashing. That's the first thing. And the second thing, you can't worship your art. If you worship your art, if you think that's the best you will ever do and it's amazing and you're an amazing person and you're the greatest person that ever lived and Gandhi has nothing on you, then you will never improve. And I'm not saying that you are, but there are some people that are like that. And they'll never improve because they're not in the constant self-reflection stage that takes you towards professionalism. Okay, and I'm going to be talking about a lot of that in the package I'll be designing for people who just start out. So um, if you want me to look at your work, master, then do it in a way where you know that there are things you don't know yet and you would like to pinpoint those things that you don't know. Okay? You heard Dan's stream when he heard that. What does that mean? Never. What does that mean? Someone said something. Can you critique this one? Yes, Conrad. Sometimes I don't see messages in the announcement stream, and please don't, talk on that. Thank you. Please talk only on the mentoring chat because the announcement group has people who aren't in the mentoring because they don't want to be spammed. So just one message at a time. Okay, so you guys, seriously, take advantage of it. You know, when you get some feedback, it's not even really about who gives you feedback. It's about the fact that you got the feedback, that you put your work out there. And if you don't let your work out in the gym, then it'll never improve. I would love to get a creek from my bunnies. On your bunnies? Or from your actual bunnies? Because you might find that a bit difficult. Welcome everyone, Daytana, Enigma, John, Hopkins, Corky, Mattia, the Whoremaster, and X. Okay. So yes, that's really good news. Thank you, X. I will be finishing it soon. It's going to take a bit of time. You know, I really want to put a lot of time and effort into it so that you guys get your money's worth. Because it really is it's gonna be my thesis, my teaching thesis in one place where you can purchase it. Instead of having to go all around my videos, all around everything, it's just gonna have absolutely everything in it. It's gonna have my heart and soul in it. It's gonna be something that really just it's gonna be the me testing the waters for a book. My husband has also been encouraging me to write a book about how to approach art and how to approach just one perspective of the millions of perspective of art teachers out there. And he said that this is a good way to test the waters. So it'll be a nice thing to sell, to help out with our financial crisis as well. There was trying to get it to work. Hey, Saratron. Welcome. So you should totally do it. Yeah, I've been organizing it. It's going to have everything in it. It's going to have contract templates. It's going to have resumes. It's going to have cover letters. It's going to have different areas where you can go to apply for jobs. It's going to have all my brush sets, custom brush sets that you can't find anywhere else that are really, really good, really refined. You're going to have all kinds of lessons that come from all different perspectives. So I hope that you guys really benefit from that. My journals? My journals are weird. I don't know what. Thank you, Mattia. I did take English as my major, English and professional writing. So if I wasn't at least half a decent writer, then I shouldn't have gone to school. But let us begin. Does anyone have anything else for me to look at? Any links I've ignored? Nope. Okay. I'm going to start with Mattia's actually because I seem to have a very good hold over what Mattia's is going on with Mattia's. Okay, Mattia. So I'm just going to show you something, and I want you to just to look at it and see if if it makes sense what I'm doing right here. Okay. Alright, so let's say we have flat surface and we have, okay, then we have this object leaning this way. Well, that's too much. And then you have it leaning like this. All of the weight that's being supported isn't here. This isn't the weight that's being supported. The clash of weights, the center of mass, I'm not sure if I can actually measure it for you, but is right here. This is the meeting point, the pivot, the actual place where all of these different masses collect to keep this object standing up. This is called the gesture. This is called the flow. This is called the actual, remember how it's C, S, or I. You either have a C shape, an S shape, or an I shape, or a merge of two or more together to create a gesture. This right now, all you have are the lines or a big C, an I or a C in different areas. So 2 C's is how you can approach it to get a nice fluid looking drawing. And this is when you draw stuff like that's a bit cartoony. When you want to draw an animal, you get one nice big C to keep the image collected, to keep the style and flow. If you want to take the eye, you get a bit more of a rigid mech sort of solidity to the gesture. And if you want to merge it, have like a C here and then a line here, which is what you did, then you'll be able to express the yes, for anything. It's not just for human figures, it's for anything. Gesture drawings, action, anything that has to do with movement. That's the key word. Movement, that's what you have to use. And it's basically, they're just saying keep everything simple so that it's it's grounded in realism. Thank you, Enigma. So what I've chosen here, I've chosen the C and the I. There's 2 ways that you can fix this image. You can give it the rigid look that comes from this, or you can give the C look that comes from this. If you do the C look, you'll give his arms that overarching power that you want to express, the character's strength. Look at what happened to his demeanor, to his strength, to what you're expressing. Look at that state. He's ready to attack. He's got a bull stability. Before you gave him that, flimsy arm on one side, it made it seem like he's gonna, back away if he wants to. More like an insect sort of weakness that you gave him in the bend of his arm. Try to keep arms really, really rigid when you want to, not stiff, not that ugly stiff look that happens when you guys don't, plan your gestures, but give it that sort of strength, the kind of solidity that a muscle builder or a bodybuilder would get, when they're flexing. So this is a chance for you to make him flex. It's also a chance to really bring down his, really shape up on the anatomy, and you can give him a sort of a human rib cage here. You can really go far with it. Before you didn't center on a central axis. So this is the axis of symmetry on his body. Before, the breast was here and another breast was here. Make sure that everything is following the same lines. Keep those contour lines that I talk to you guys about all the time. Keep them stable. Make sure that they have everything, that they're following the contours of the image. Okay? He doesn't really have realistic anatomy. Well, what I mean by anatomy isn't the fact that he exists or not. That's not what we mean when we say anatomy. Because, Shadow of the Colossus, those things don't exist, but they have anatomy. Anatomy doesn't mean perfect human biology. Anatomy means if this were real, if is the key word, if this creature that you're designing were real, and if you had the power to bring it to life, would it collapse? Would its skeletal structure keep it up? Would it be some sort of abomination? Would it be able to sustain life? That's what I mean when I say try to create as much realism as possible in respect to your style, so that if you were to bring it to life, you would convince the person who is seeing the image that this can come to life. If you were to bring it to life, it can function. Because what we're doing is that we're not creating beings. We're just reflecting the creation of beings. We're not creating this character. We're not creating him. We're conceptualizing him. We're saying this is a possibility. The concept could be real. We bring it to life. And when you give it a certain degree of anatomy meaning plausible muscle structures, not nonsensical skeletal structures, the tail aligns with the symmetry line, everything seems balanced, that it could stand on its own. That's essentially what we mean. So that you can convince the person that's seeing it that this is a real object. Okay, another thing that I could suggest for the sake of the believability is, the tail. The tail seems to be out of the symmetry structure because he's sort of, you're giving it a 2D structure even though it should be at a 3D thing. And let me show you what I mean. I'm sure you understand it. I'm sure you know. I'm sure you did this already, but there seems to be like a lighting or a shadow that needed to have been there to convince me even more that this guy is real. Okay, 1 second. Let me just fix this. All right. So remember those lines that I just showed you? I just showed you a bunch of white lines. These lines right here, so all of these contour lines, when you think about them as if this was the spine, as if the object were see-through, this is the bottom part, or the top part of the tail, this area here. And what happens to it is that it eventually connects to the spine. But it doesn't trail all the way to the edge of the tail. And what you're doing is giving it a really, really flat look. We need to see some edges where this tail, has an edge on one side, so that it could look even more like this is a 3D subject, not a 2D rendition of what he could look like. So you see all of this, and then when you bring in all those little ridges and all those little bends and scales or whatever, you can give that 3D quality to the tail. Do you know what I mean? So that's basically what I meant by the discontinuity of the tail. The tail didn't seem like it continued with the image. Yeah, really nice design, really beautiful design. You really have a knack for that, Mattia. It's really your strong point. So same way you would draw a 3D object, we're just doing this, like the same way you would draw this square, this cube, you can do the same exact, theory. You can apply the same theory to the tail. It's really nothing. You don't need a reference for it. You don't need a 3D modeling history for it. You just need that sort of understanding. Because you have to put shadows somewhere, Mattia. So where are you going to put these shadows? And since the light is coming from above, what happens is that only part of this tail will be drenched in shadow. The other part will receive the light. So the light is coming from above, so this whole area here is going to get a little bit of light. And then continue the continuity, let's say. I'll get some grays from the background and place it on the tail, and then place it on just a little bit of the tail near the back to show that he's sort of pushed off into the back, the tail. That's what the awesome thing about rule breaking is, that if you break the rules in a realistic way, it really helps your image. So we're giving it a fade, an atmospheric fade, but there isn't that much atmosphere in between us and the object, but we're giving it an atmospheric fade still. Just a little bit, just to help with the anatomy. So this leg here, you only have some of the leg in atmospheric fade. Make sure that the whole leg, because the whole leg is in the place, not only part of the leg, but the whole leg is in that distance, that sort of distant spot. So what we're going to do is drench the whole leg in that atmospheric fade. Not that much. About this much. Do you see that? This leg just a tiny bit, barely noticeably. So that we have a movement forward and we see him, really pushing forward. And I've talked to you a lot about it already, and you're probably sick of me talking about it, but secondary light sources will really help bring this creature to life. So you have a little bit here. You can use the gray. You don't have to use a secondary light source at all. You can use the gray of the surrounding landscape. And what that will do is that will act like it's a secondary light source. It's really just diffusion, it's just reflection. But look at what it does to the anatomy. It just brings it to life completely. I'm going to put some here. I'm going to put some here. A little bit on the shoulder. I don't know what I'm doing wrong with the secondary. The secondary light source is used sort of as a reflective, assistance to the primary light source, so that whatever the primary light source is casting as shadow, the secondary light source saves, so that it's not completely drenched in shadow. What happens is that you have a clash, a shadow clash, between both of the light sources. So what we're going to get here is a sort of like a line of darkness right over here. Do you see that? And it sort of brought his arm to life a little bit. And this is an option that you can take this option if you do. You don't have to get frustrated about it, or you don't have to take it. Okay? But I'm doing it wrong. I know. I think what the issue is, you're not doing enough. You are doing it, but you're doing it very cautiously. You're just not doing enough secondary lighting to bring out the form that we're so worried about. Because we're worried about the form being lost. So before, not considering the arm, we couldn't really see this side of his face here. It was really blocked off. You see some of his ear, but his shoulder, the dark shoulder, is really blocking off all the light. So if you don't want to use secondary light source, let's go back. You don't have to, but I recommend it nonetheless. But what you can do is that this shoulder here is very illuminated, while this one is very dark, and you're trying to create that, again, that 3/4 view shading that you do. So what you can do is just lighten up this side here so that we can see that part of the shoulder. I'm just worried about areas that are dark being too dark. That's all. You keep saying to me that I don't use it. I don't get it. I'm saying that you don't use it enough. Because you do really, really intense, dramatic shadows. You do intense lighting. So some of your objects that you draw, these ones here, some parts of them are really dark because the shadow that you've given us, the light that you've given us, seems to be intense enough to create that shadow. So you can, like I said, do two things. Start getting a secondary light source so that we could see this side here. Do you see how that reveals that side for us? Or just lighten up and don't create so much shaded area so that we can see this side of the head. This is what I'm worried about, this side of the head right here. Okay? That's what I mean. Welcome everyone, Cherry, Good Sir, Kraskar, and everyone else who hasn't signed in. Welcome. Jay the Leaf, I think, just gave me one. Yep, Jay, I'll do yours. Message me directly, guys. Don't depend on the chat group, because sometimes I don't see it. And if you message me directly, it'll just give me the... Yeah. And fix the arm and tail, obviously. So, okay, so I'll put stronger secondary light and fix the arm and tail, obviously. And I think that was it. Yeah, that was it. Just make what we did with maybe actually this leg here seems to be, again, out of the continuity of the image. So if we follow the anatomy, this other joint would be here, and then the other leg would come across this way. And so we would see that other leg somewhere around here, bent like that. Yeah, just follow the anatomy, follow it, track it down, hunt it down, see where it is. Get a line of symmetry going, get a hip joint. So this one needs a hip joint right here, and this is the navel area, and then we have that, and then we have this, and then we're going to have one that's similar to that. I would even hide it even more behind it, but I sort of don't want to shock your image. It's really up to you. But this leg is still too forward. It'll be somewhere, if I were to erase the whole thing, it'll be somewhere back over here. It seems that the anatomy is a bit tilted to the side. And so what you can do is sort of express, it seems like he's, you see how it seems like he's sticking his butt this way so we could see it? Seems like he's sort of about to do like a snake move. So this is because his body is very straight. It's very narrow. So we don't really have, the legs seem to be attached to the body. So what you can do is create a separation between the legs so that what you can get is like a spider kind of thing. So that you can push that other far leg, you can push that other far leg this close up. Get it? Because this leg seems to be attached like a snake instead of like a scorpion. So if we were looking at him this way, this would be his arms, and then it would be just a snake and the legs are attached. But instead what we want is head, arms, legs, tail. Yeah? So that's basically what I can add to you. So tail, arm, secondary light sourcing, and leg. And I'll send that back to you. Really awesome stuff, Mitya. I'm really proud of you. We're seeing really, really, portfolio-worthy stuff from you, and I hope you're going to get some crazy commission for creature design soon, if you haven't already. The English person? Can I get a crit on this? Yes. Just let me copy paste it. Just leaky religion. Sorry? Oh. Okay, next up is Sarah's. This is a self-portrait for Sarah. Very pretty person, if I do say so myself. Okay, so Sarah. What was that werewolf image? Oh, that was just a commission I did a while ago. Okay, pay attention. Alright, so Sarah, first thing that really, really bothered me about this is, I know it's okay if you just started with the class, you haven't been there since October like the rest, but when I teach hair, when I talk about hair, I say always go from large to small, because hair comes in chunks, and then it comes in smaller chunks, and then it comes in strands. Strands always paint them last because they need a lot of detail and they can really give the hair texture, and flyaway hair, you can draw that. You can draw the strands that are caught in the air or in the light. Thank you, Ward. Oh, I'm sorry. I will look at it though. You can look at the recording. Bye. So when I talk about hair, I really, really, really want to stress to you that you can't draw it starting off backward. You can't draw it by just going in with the number 1 size brush, 1 pixel width brush, and just doing this. You can't do that because the hair will look very fake. You'd think that it would work, right? Because that's how it works in real life. You just have a bunch of chunks of hair, but you don't see every hair, do you? Your eyes aren't that strong. You don't see every single hair of strand on a person's head. What you do see is a very abstract, blurry chunk of dark stuff on a person's head. Alright, so when you do draw hair, remember from large to small. So what I'm going to do now is just walk you through a section of it so that you know what I mean, instead of me just babbling on without explaining it. So good job staying away from the darks. It's really good. I really like how you've put the lights only where you need them. The face looks very, very beautiful. And you see how the hair was standing in the way of this realism? To see how it really was just playing down the amount of realism that you applied to this image and the style that you applied to it. The hair was really getting in the way. So hair is difficult, and I don't blame you for having difficulty with it. But this is a new technique. Try it. It'll help you. Alright. So what we're going to do is get a bit of a darker tone. Even if she's blonde, get like a darker tone. Just to start off with a good base shadow. And then, find chunks of hair where you think they're going to be. So for me, I have like a very standard. First and foremost, actually, I'm just going to increase the size of the canvas because it's way too small. It's really standing in the way of the portrait. It's just crowding everything in together and we have no space to do anything. Alright, so I'm just going to get rid of that. Alright, so make sure your canvas is large enough. Never cramp yourself in. It feels very claustrophobic. Okay, so I'm going to get a nice dark tone. And then I'm just going to find the chunks of hair where I really want to apply some mass. So I'm just going to get the general shape of the hair. I don't know how your hair looks like, so I'm just going to have fun with it. Bear with me. Okay, now I got the general shape. I'm going to decrease the brush just a bit less than this. And get a lighter tone, just a touch lighter. And decrease the brush and get another chunk of hair in there. Another chunk there, another chunk there. Another bit here and here. Not really working with a reference, so just forgive the roughness. I'm going to decrease the brush size again and get a darker tone. And just try to get some sort of... Increase my brush, decrease it according to which area I'm in. So that the open and close brackets, the square open and close brackets, are really helpful with that. They're just a shortcut. Okay, and now I'm going to decrease my brush one more time. Not just one more time. And then get another chunk of hair drawn in there. Still with the dark color. And then I'm going to get a lighter tone. And a bit of a lighter... sort of just a touch into the illumination that's being caused by the light source. And I'm just going to introduce some smaller hair strands, in all those areas there. And then I'm going to get a lighter tone and introduce some light hair strands as well that are in the small size. See how easy it is moving from large to small. And this is just a couple seconds. Imagine spending a good hour on it. Just really getting a nice chunk of hair painted. And imagine working with a reference, even better. And that way you can really just create a very convincing looking head of hair. Alright? And you can even go smaller than this and get really, really small sizes and just stroke them in there to really get it like a nice convincing looking head of hair. And out here we're going to decrease the size of the brush and get some flyaway hair. She has very styled hair, like a lot of hairspray. But I didn't really choose a specific style. And get some of those strands in there. And don't forget, hair casts a shadow, so you're gonna need some shadow in that area. Okay. And really just work with it. And I have a tutorial on YouTube about how to paint hair as well. as well as this one if I upload it today. So, you know, you guys have a lot of resources from this group. Don't forget to outline the shape of the face. Not really outline it, but like separate it. Make sure you shade all the shadowed area as well. So that you could separate all those areas from each other. Make sure the neckline isn't too masculine, because when the neck sticks out that much, that's because the person is very muscular and the neck is very thick. And so in 3/4 view, you see the neck shape there. Thank you, Enigma. Is that my tutorial, or? I don't know if it is. Thank you very much. Okay, and just try to get everything nice and set up. For the eyes, don't forget, as much as you paint the top lid, you paint the bottom lids as well. Thank you, Enigma. Don't forget all the light spots of a face. So I told you under the eyebrows, there's always a nice little, you know, chunk of light there. Atop the, like that milk mustache. Atop the lips. On the chin. On the bridge of the nose. On the inner corner of the eyes. And make sure that everything is in symmetry with each other. So if we go to filter, this eye right here is a bit out of the symmetry line. So it was all the way down here when it should have been a bit up. The lips are really well done. Nostrils are really well done. Just make sure they're on the symmetry line. The horizontal symmetry, not the vertical symmetry. And there you go. Something that is a bit more convincing. You know, and it allows your image to really shine. So before, do you see how, no, don't do that framing thing that you did before. The framing that you did really just looked very, very, and excuse the word, I'm so sorry for using it, but it's a very tacky technique. Tacky meaning, they did it a lot in the 80s for those glamour shots, and people just started calling it tacky. It just got that tacky look. Tacky basically because everyone did it. So before, after. And I'm not telling you to do the exact moves that I do. I'm not telling you to be exactly like my style. What I'm asking you to do is don't do the hair the way you did it with tiny little, you know, 1 pixel width brush. And make sure the neck isn't too thick. Make sure everything isn't too dark. You are a bit too dark too soon there. And try to get a good, you know, a good soft look to the hair, because the hair here looked very, very coarse, if you can tell. That texture added a very fake, coarse look to the hair. Something that you could do with a pencil, you know? But yeah. Well, you can easily offend someone, Mattia. I wasn't going to say, oh, this looks like shit. I wouldn't actually say that. But tacky's, I don't know, tacky's a pretty bad word for me. And I don't know why. But, okay. Loud kettle. Never mind. So I'll save that and send it to you, Sarah. So really take in, so hair, keeping everything light, don't frame the image, and just make sure everything is nice and collected. Large brush to small brush. And the large to small technique isn't just for hair, it's for everything else. Yeah. Alright, so for this image, I'm just going to flip it the other way. For some reason I feel like it looks... I think I saw it flip the other way the other day. Good fun, Sarah. Good fun? Good luck, Sarah. Have fun. Oh my god, I said good fun. Wow. Okay. So for this image, what we have is, you know, a really shadowy spot versus a very light spot. And what you have is red or orange versus blue. In shadows, what happens is that we get very cool shadows, especially on rocks, and sedimentary rocks, desert rocks. They get very purple very fast because they're very white. They work like snow. They reflect the complementary underneath. They reflect the coolness very, very quickly. Now that we took down the red and really brought it down to a cool stage, what I'm going to do is lighten this whole shadowed area. It's very, very, very dark. And it doesn't need to be that dark at all, considering the amount of light out there. And the light seems to be shining. I'm not sure where the light is coming from, but it seems to be shining into the little valley area we have here. So what would happen is that we would get the shadow like this of the object. Do you see? Instead of the way you've done it here. That's one way to do it, if you want to do it that way. And then you can just add texture to the rock and apply, you know, the appropriate amount of lighting there and saturation. That's one way you can do it. Another way is if the sun is shining on the side and one part of the cliff is causing a shadow on another part of the cliff. And what we can do here also, we lighten the shadowed area up. So what we can do is, or anyone knows where I can learn about rocks that would help me in an artistic way? Like what kinds of rocks are there in the world and what makes them the way they are? Okay, that's really, really good advice. What you could do is, you know, there's so many resources. There's Wikipedia. There's you know, like geology enthusiast websites where they talk about sedimentary rocks and different issues and rocks that resulted from the, you know, glaciers and rocks that are found in different parts of the world. Desert rocks versus underwater rocks. I'm sure you can find loads of that on the internet. I can look for you later on if you want. Okay, hey Michael. So what I'm going to be doing now is this area is still shadowed, and you did paint a very abstract image, no doubt, and you know, we can't really break that abstraction. But what we can do is apply some laws of realism to really bring this image to life. So I'm going to cool down all these shadows because they are in the shadowed area. And I'm going to give a bit of, you know, create a bit of a dynamic shadow going on. And so all of this here can be drenched in light. And the thing is with landscape images, if you don't have dramatic, long, stretching shadows, what's going to happen is that it's going to look very dull. So what I'm going to do is just lighten this whole place up. Don't worry, I will desaturate it in a second. I know it's extremely saturated. It will go down, like right now. Okay, so what that did was it created a shadow that trails off onto the rocks. And what I'm going to do now is sort of create a bit of a rock texture. I'll just get my brush. Come on, brush set, you can do it. And just add in some sort of texture here. I'll also saturate a little bit along the shadow line. It's a nice little thing that happens in real life, I've noticed. I know I'm using a soft brush on what's supposed to be a hard texture, but forgive me. I'll just use this one. Okay, so now what happened is that that shadow has trailed off and created a nice little sort of run of shadow over here, which is going to cause some shadows trailing off here, shadows trailing off here. And some shadows over here, light touching this area. So do you see how now the shadow is responding to the light source a little bit better than before? Because it's such a bright area and it's really sandy, you know, and so what we want to do is create an atmosphere, and the best way to create appeal, an atmosphere in your images, is to create dramatic lighting. It doesn't always have to be dramatic, but dramatic enough that it makes it fun to look at. I'm going to add in that line of redness just along the edge of the shadow. Do you see what that does? It's very, very appealing. It's very nice. How did you fix the tablet? While I was updating it, I had to disconnect the tablet from the computer entirely. And so every time I deleted a driver to update the driver, the tablet was still connected and the computer didn't know how to disconnect because the driver was still attached. In order for the tablet to run, I needed the driver. So the computer didn't actually delete the driver. It just acted like it did. I don't know. That's what I'm assuming, because it did delete it off the add or remove programs. But I went into the registry. I went into the what's it called, and it was still there. Well, I updated it many times before, Mattia, without having to disconnect. It's a weird glitch that happens every time I go in to change a setting. Like right now, if I go in and change a setting on my tablet, it'll do the same thing all over again, and I'll have to delete and update. It's really weird. The mouse starts, even my mouse, instead of not just the tablet, the mouse starts to act strange. Tablet is influencing the mouse. So yeah, here we go. And on the shadow of the ship, I'm just gonna make it a touch lighter. I'm gonna make it a touch lighter than the shadow of just in the areas where the light starts off. Then the area within the valley. I'm gonna silhouette this area here. Okay, and that's pretty much it. As for these strange looking tube thingies, you can add those in there, but this one here is very obstructive, and it's really just breaking the composition. It's not assisting the composition. So what I recommend is removing it and shrinking it and adding it to another area of this image. Because do you see how it's getting in the way of that beautiful trailing light? By the way, whose image is this? So I could talk directly to you. Because you guys aren't naming these after yourselves, so I don't know. But yeah, I hope you know what I mean when I say it's sort of obstructing that line of light. What's the most appealing thing about this image is this shadow of the ship, of this whole system here. And if you do want to create stuff that is in the foreground, by all means go do so. Just make sure it's in its right appropriate spot. And so now you have some sort of fun rock shapes. I don't know what I'm doing. In the foreground here. Okay? So did you get all that I did, Corky? All I really did was hey, Ista, did you change something? Your stream is not lagging for me anymore. Oh, I'm not sure what I did. I have no idea. I updated Procaster. Maybe that's why. So do you see, all I did was I exaggerated the lighting. I made sure that the light source responds, the shadows respond to the light source. It was another way around. I'll flip it back. So before, after. It was way too saturated before, extremely saturated. And it was really getting in the way of the color of the ship. You did want to create a desert kind of look, but what happened was you created some sort of, overly red, kind of abstract look for the desert. And now that you flip it over, you can play around with the lighting again. I see a little issue here. Stretch it this way. We have a nice edge along here. Okay, welcome Taha. And I'll just send this back to you, Corky. I hope you're on my Skype. Yeah, you are. Okay. Next up is, I think this one came before. This one came before. Okay, there's a couple things wrong with this image. Just because you create something that looks really, really good does not mean it's okay to give it a white background. A white background will destroy your image. what you need to do, look at all the pros out there. Look at all their galleries and portfolios. What have they done? They have done, constantly created a background that allows their image to be showcased in a way that doesn't disrupt the image's values. That's basically the simplest way I could say it. We don't know what kind of atmosphere this comes from, and sometimes we don't want to paint a background. We're not in the mood to paint a background. The commissioner didn't ask for a background. So what do we do if we have lighting, if we have shades, if we have different saturation colors of that image and we can't attach a background so we can make sense of those colors and say, well, these colors have an actual atmosphere they come from, because every color comes from a light source. And if we don't have a background, we don't have a light source that's visible. We just have a reaction or the result of a light source. So what we do is we give it a gray background. That's what we do. Gray is non-evasive. It's nice. It's not a bully. And it's not going to take over your values. White and black take over your values. No man's land, no man's land. This is the area that you can paint in because it's friendly to all value types. There's no prejudice against all the colors of the rainbow, if you know what I'm talking about. Okay. And delete that. Delete that. Yes, exactly, Enigma. Presentation is just as important. And once we do this, look at how much white took over this image. Do you see the kind of saturation that is here? This is all white's fault. What white did was it forced you to saturate, it forced you to get things lighter so that it could match the white that you had in the image. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring all these colors nice and dark. Bring them down a bit. Find some sort of light source for all of this. Make sense of the image. So I'm going to make the light source above him as if he's flying below the sun. Highlights here. This is a dragon, and dragons are hard to paint. You have a responsibility when you paint dragons, man. Dragons are the most epic things in fantasy, in lore, in anything. They're just so celebrated. They're everywhere in the media now. And there's ways to really, really expand or, just take your concept somewhere else. There's brushes out there that are really designed for dragons. There's like scale brushes, there's claws, there's stuff that can really help you. Try to get a good hold over the anatomy so we have it seems like a part of him is really just cut off. And the tail needs to be a little bit more stabilized. So what I'm going to do is get the clone stamp. Actually, no, current and below. And just paint some of that in there. You need to give it a bit more girth, even if it is like a sort of skinny kind of snake-like dragon. Wow, that's dedication. That is dedication. Drew and colored every single scale. That's awesome. And I'm going to make it so that the light source is coming from above, this way. It is going to get a bit light, but that's fine because now that we have a light source, we can saturate and desaturate to our will. I'm going to take it into the liquefy, and now we're going to have a bit of fun. We're going to try to give the dragon a bit of a snake-like. See, it's hard when you don't start off with a gesture line. A gesture line. So now that we did that, all I really did was gave the dragon a little bit of girth, changed the background color for you, and made it look a bit less cartoony by adding in some light source. But that's not it. Dayton, what I want you to start doing from now on, if you want to paint a dragon, if you want to paint something that is long, you need a line to help you start it off. You need a line to help you begin the image, to give it some sort of structure. So now that we have this gesture line, which is just an S or a C shape, what we can do now is so many things. We can really we have the guideline. It's like getting the guideline to help you through the image so that you can draw and not worry about the form. And what we're going to do now is just create simple additive form structures that will help us with this dragon. I'm going to add in some hands here, some legs here. These dragons don't really have wings. Like if I were to design this dragon, so we gave it its little whiskers, tail, horn, I don't know. Can make the horn nice and, weird looking. Might be having a bit too much fun right now. Attach it. And the fact that you start off with a C shape or some sort of guiding line for flow, it means that you're not going to fail flow wise. Here it's so straight and so rigid, and it just sometimes you have like a random line, and that's basically the guiding line. This line right here is the guiding line that made you start this, because you never even started with the guiding line. You just started with the head and then you attached different parts, and that's it. What I want you to do is remember that you need a guiding line in the beginning to help you create a convincing looking movement, flow. Do you see the flow here? The energy and all that cosmos stuff, okay? So that's what I mean when I say make sure your gesture and your lines are set up. Make sure your roughs are done, Dayton, before you start an image and really get and draw in every single scale. Make sure that you have the guiding form first. Don't go in and draw every tiny little scale. Don't start off with the small brush. Start off with the large brush, with the large strokes. Make sure that make sure that you have all of that stuff done. Okay. So I'm gonna close that. Cancel. Flatten. Okay. I'll save that for you. If you want, you can add my Skype, and then we'll get to the image for you. Okay, this is the person that left, right? Now that I hope they're watching, but the biggest issue I find with this isn't the ground, isn't the distance, it is the colors. And sometimes you want to create something that looks green. Okay, fine. But when you have a sky and you want to show it that it is a sky without it being Namek or some sort of alien structure or something that someone will have a difficult time establishing, just follow the rules of life. Give it a blue. But the blue that I chose, was a green blue. It was sort of a blue really close to the green. This is where the green, this is aqua, turquoise colors. And this is the blue that I chose right here. And this blue has tackled all those issues. So before you have this yellow-green glow to it, and we added just a touch of blue, and look where the image went to. Instant sort of uplifting for the atmosphere. I'm going to also add in some atmospheric fade. This is a very, very big unit of design when you're working with landscape, atmospheric fade. What happens is that when objects are far away, the light and the air and the light in the air get in the way, causing the image to be distorted, faded off, almost half invisible. So it's like you brought the opacity down on the image, on the layer of the image. And so what we're doing now is adding in that atmospheric fade to all the distant areas over here, and making sure that atmospheric fade is grounded by the blue. And when you do add in the light now can take a nice white yellow hue, and it can really just bring your image also to life as well. The light will reflect on the tips of mountains. Just make sure you follow the light trail. It will follow top tips like this, tops of the areas, because the rest of the mountains are blocking the way, so only the tops really get the most light. Over here, over this part. This is a nice large shadow here, but remember to end the shadow. Don't keep the shadow going. So what I'm going to do is allow the shadow of this edge right here to fall upon this. And then you see this edge of green that you have. It's really not allowing us to see that edge if you have the background so dark. So I'm going to add in some atmospheric fade on those rocks as well, so that we can see that edge right there. Merge that down. Get the burn tool on shadows and find the shadow of that edge, the edge of that edge right here. I'm talking about this object. And just follow up with that. And then trail that shadow that's moving from that cliff. Over here to really keep everything organized and set straight. Keep that shadow continuous. And then you got a shadow here. And now we can see the people here. I think there's people here. It's become very difficult to see them. Okay, another thing I'm going to do is saturate the background color. You need some sort of reinforced green in the background. So what I'm going to do is saturate that sort of turquoise in those distant mountains and give them sort of like an emerald glow right near the top, where the light is really, really touching them. That'll reinforce the green, but not so much that it's just a pure forest green. But again, it's that blue green that unifies the entire image. Okay? And finally, for the sky, I would just darken up one part of the sky, just a touch, just to show where the light source is coming from. Okay, and then we're going to do a before and after so you guys can see. Before looked very, very dull. The green was really pulling down on the atmosphere. And when we added in the blues and we added in that saturation, look at it looks like Feng Zhu did it. And I'm not saying that, Feng Zhu is the god of art. I'm saying that he follows all those rules very, very well. He doesn't forget those rules. He practically writes them down and makes sure that they're in every single painting. And you guys can paint something that Feng Zhu paints. It's nothing impossible. You guys can achieve that level. And how do you achieve that level, Istebrak? Stop lying to us. Stop telling us that we can't achieve professionalism. Yes, you can, and I can tell you how. Make sure you understand the scientific rules behind these designs. Make sure that you have a good understanding of why things are faded in the distance and why things are darker in the foreground. If you remember to follow those rules, all your landscapes, all your drawings are going to have that realistic edge to them. And then if you saturate just a touch more, if you add in just that weird little pink color, you're going to create that illusion, that magic, that really captivating quality unique to you and unique to your style.